Hey guys, how are you? For this Tuesday's tip, we're going to talk about kind of seeking advice on social media and navigating social media so you can get the most out of it. We're really fortunate now in this age that pretty much all the information in the world is out there for us, on the internet. Now the problem is, for all the good information out there, there's also a lot of bad information out there. So sifting through that can be tough. A lot of us use Facebook, and there's a lot of Facebook groups, and that's kind of become one of the more popular places where reptile keepers gather. And as you can imagine, it's often a dumpster fire. So with that in mind, and of course I didn't even introduce, you guys already know Black Magic. She's done, I did a Meet the Collection with her, but she's my help for this particular video, being very helpful, as you can see. So anyhow, common sense is one of those things that's key. You're going to have to apply common sense to anything somebody tells you, or that you read. You've got to apply some common sense. Does it make sense? Now, being new, some things might not make sense that are correct, but don't be afraid to question things. And if you are going to question somebody, don't be rude about it. You can just say, hey, you know what, I'm newer. Can you explain to me why? A lot of people in the reptile community just parrot information. So they either read something or they hear something, and all they do is repeat. And when you ask them why, they can't explain it to you. If somebody can't explain to you why they're advising you to do something, probably not the best idea to follow that advice blindly. You might want to look more into it and try to figure it out. That's where obviously having a mentor really helps with some of this stuff. That's a person where when you get information that doesn't make sense or conflicting information, you can bounce that off that person. But when you're looking for these groups, don't be sensitive. A lot of people get too sensitive and too defensive. You don't want to be defensive, especially if you're newer or you're in a situation where you need advice or you're seeking advice. You're asking for other people to share their knowledge with you and other people to help you. So getting defensive or being rude to them is really kind of stupid and just not really necessary when you're the one that needs information that they may or may not have. And there's all manner of people out there, so you're going to get some people that are going to give you good, solid advice, but it may come across a little harsh or maybe even a little rude. You don't have to like these people. You don't have to get along with them. You can just say thank you. Even if you get advice that you don't agree with or you're not going to do, you don't have to, argue with the people or fight with them. Just say, hey, thanks for your input. I appreciate it. And don't do it. It's not a huge deal. And also, you're going to meet people out there that are really super, super nice, and they give you terrible, terrible advice. So sometimes bad advice can come wrapped in lots of happiness and wonderful feelings, and really great advice can come in wrapped in a harsh wrapper. So you really need to take everything with a grain of salt and not be so sensitive or defensive. Try to be objective. Take yourself out of your own shoes for a minute if you have to sift through that information. The same goes when you're joining groups. The whole thing you're trying to do as a keeper, or you should be trying to do, is grow as a keeper. And people that just pat you on the back and tell you you're doing a great job all the time, whether you are or not, those are not the people that are going to help you grow. That might be wonderful, but if you're doing something wrong and people are like, yeah, that's great, that's not helping your animal and it's not helping you grow. Whereas when you have these other people that are going to challenge you and they're going to say, hey, you know what? I don't think you really should be doing that. Maybe you want to try this or look into this or read this study or this information. That's how you grow as a keeper. Being open to that and being willing to read through that, to learn from that. Like I said, even if you're not necessarily going to apply what they give to you, at least be willing and open to that information because it may help you. Maybe it helps you down the line. Maybe 2 years from now, you run into a situation where you go, you know what? Let me try this because what I've been doing is not working, and it might work for you. So it's important to want to grow, and it's important to seek people and places that are going to give you that opportunity. Not the people that you're going to show them a horrible setup and they're going to go, it looks wonderful. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help your animal. It's hurting you and it's hurting your animal. It's really nice for them to be, power positivity, whatever you want to call it. And there are some people that are going to be nice and give good advice. There's going to be some people that are jerks and give bad advice. It works all the way around, but don't look at the packaging. Look at the information you're getting. That's the important takeaway there. Also, when you're joining groups or on any social platform, you want to look at the people that are running it. You want to see, what do they keep? What's their experience? how accessible they are. And that doesn't mean if you message them 3, 4, 5 times a day, they're going to always answer you. I don't mean that by accessibility, but I mean, are they active in their own group? Are they leading discussions? Are they participating in discussions? You're going to want groups or places where those admins are part of the resource there. The thing is with social media, anybody can make a social media platform. Anybody can make a group. So, I could go out tomorrow, having never owned a snake, buy a snake and start a Facebook group and just go out and give information and act like I know what I'm doing. And people will follow it. And it's sad because there's a lot of people that are well-intentioned that end up leading people down a bad path. So you definitely want to pay attention to your sources of information and make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to learn from people that are going to be able to teach you or grow with you, whatever it is. So definitely keep that in mind, and don't be afraid to ask them what their experience is. And you don't have to be rude about it. You can just say, hey, I'm new to the group. I'm kind of curious. What do you keep? How long have you been keeping for? Whatever it is. And look at that. And, there's people that have been keeping for 30 years that don't necessarily do things right. And there's people that have been keeping for 6 months that really do a great job. The difference usually is in what people have seen as far as issues that pop up. If you've been keeping for a year and everything's gone perfect, then you really haven't learned how to deal with issues that may arise. Whereas those people that have been keeping for 30 years have probably dealt with a handful of issues at some point or another, as most of us have that have kept for a long period of time. So while time doesn't necessarily always dictate experience, more often than not, people that have really been around for a long time are going to be a wealth of knowledge in most cases. And they may be examples of what you don't want to do. Maybe you see things that they've done, they haven't adapted with the time, they haven't learned, and they haven't kind of progressed. They've been stuck in the same position. So that's something that can happen too, and you can use that and learn from that. So just always be willing to really be open to new information. Always be willing to put in the research. Even a book that was written 20 years ago, there's still some good information in there. Yes, some things may have changed, but there's still solid information there. There's still studies that were conducted a long time ago that'll give you good information. But don't forget, these are captive bred snakes in captive environments. So reading what their wild counterparts do or how their wild counterparts live is useful information to us, and it will help us, but it's not 100% applicable all the time. These animals do adapt to their environment, and they have been changed, through selective breeding. There's certain traits that are different, personality traits, colors, and the truth is, with a darker snake like this, if they're out in the sun, they're going to absorb more heat than, their lighter counterparts. That's why even if you look at wild snakes and you look at populations of the same species that spread across like a large region, the areas where it gets warmer, they're often a little bit different colored than the areas where, those snakes really need to maximize their basking opportunities. So there's just little things that, will go into your care and do change in captivity that we need to pay attention to. Plus, we don't really shock our snakes' immune systems. Like a wild snake is, going to be eating stuff and all different things. We really kind of sugarcoat everything for them, as we should, but just keep that in mind. So this snake doesn't quite have the same immune system that, if I pulled the same size snake, out of Sumatra, it's going to have a much different immune system just based on what that animal's been up against versus, Miss Black Magic here that's, never sat in a dirty cage for more than a day or two. Just a very different thing that happens. Open to questions, open to discussion on this, but just we have great resources. It's just learning how to use them right. So always ask questions, always be willing to do some independent research, and always apply common sense. If somebody tells you the only way to fix a problem is to put a plastic bag over your snake's head and suffocate it or something, that doesn't make any sense. So you're not going to listen to something like that. So just be diligent, be willing to learn, be willing to teach if you're a person that's got the experience. I know sometimes it's frustrating, and keep that in mind too when you're joining a group and you're new. A lot of experienced keepers have heard the same questions thousands of times over and over and over. So if they're a little snippy, it's not anything personal. It's just, it gets tiring having to see the same exact post day in and day out for years and years and years. We do try to be as helpful as we can, but it's always nice to see people with fresh ideas and people that you can tell have put in the work, as opposed to people that just want you to give, and they're not really doing anything for themselves. So be proactive, be involved in your animal's care. I want to keep these videos under 10 minutes, and I just went over 10, so I'm going to cut it off there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that, ask questions, I want to build this channel up if you guys like the content. Feel free to share my videos if you like what's going on. If you don't, tell me, and maybe I can make some changes. I'm always open to stuff as well. Thank you guys. We'll see you.